Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. Narcissists. You know who they are. They're the ones that hold the centre of attention and have an inflated sense of self. They walk on top of everyone around them and they take credit when they shouldn't. But how do you spot one? And how do you deal with them? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Narcissists can often talk the talk and are often in positions of authority. At first glance, they can be charismatic and likeable, but over time their personalities can lead to a toxic work environment if not reined in. So says HR expert Karen Gately, founder and CEO of Corporate Dojo. She explains in a moment how to recognise a narcissist in a job interview and what you can do if there is one in your business. But first, what is a narcissist exactly? Karen Gately explains to Chris Ashmore.
So I think the easiest way to think about a narcissist is around their self-belief and their self-importance. So a narcissist is somebody who has unwavering faith in who they are and, have a tendency to think of themselves as being the centre of the universe. So there's lots of words we can use to describe that, but, really selfishness, inflated sense of self, believing that their perspective is the right one, believing that their rights are, stronger or more important than other people's. So I think the easiest way to understand whether or not we've got someone with that in our workplace is observing their behaviour. Is this somebody who's actually a team player? Are they able to engage effectively with other people because they've got an open mind, that they're willing to engage in dialogue and conversation around issues of debate, or do they just stubbornly stand their point of view? So, I think it is just about observing those interactions with other people is going to be the biggest tell.
Is there anything necessarily wrong with having a narcissist, though, in the business? I mean, are they bad for business?
I think that there are some benefits, so we put those on the table. I think there's no doubt that if I have belief in myself and I have certainty in my perspective, I'm more likely to speak up, I'm more likely to step forward, I'm more likely to have discipline. As most of us know, sometimes, what our belief is not particularly popular with other people, or other people have their own fears that they try to bring into our world and try to convince us not to follow a particular path. But if we have that confidence and that conviction and we pursue those paths, then sometimes we absolutely are right and we were, correct to back ourselves. So I think in any workplace environment, it can be beneficial for people to have that belief. Certainly narcissists get ahead in life because they present that confidence and that strength. So others, for example, if the board is looking to appoint a person into a senior leadership role, often they are looking for, does this person actually have that strength of character and that conviction? So, I think those are some of the benefits. The problem is that I've never come across a business yet where one person's opinion or one person's perspective is always the right one. So if we genuinely want to have collaboration, if we genuinely want to tap into the potential of all of the human beings in our business, then the narcissist can create a barrier to doing that. They can create a barrier to other people's voices being heard. They can also damage relationships. Most people don't appreciate being shut down or don't appreciate not having the opportunity to be heard. So, if you've got a narcissist in a leadership role, often they'll lack empathy. They'll lack that ability to create connection with other people, build trust, earn respect, and have a positive and healthy impact on those people. So, again, as I said before, there are strengths, but the downsides, in my view, far outweigh the strengths that the belief actually brings to the table.
When it comes to, say, screening them in a job interview, how do you do that? I would imagine that it'd be hard to do because they would come across as confident. They'd be sure of themselves. They would say the right things. They'd smile at the right place. They want to be liked, so they come across as friendly and likeable. So how do you know on first appearances whether they are genuine or they're being narcissistic?
I think it's listening deeply. It's listening to understand what is the lens through which this person observes the world or experiences the world. For a start, is it all about them? Or is there somebody that also reflects on the relationships they've had? So, tell us about a time when you've been really successful. What drove your success, for example, might be a question you could ask. Is it purely centered around their own contribution? Or does their character cause them to start to talk about other people as well? I was part of this great team and we did these things and we did those things. Now, sometimes you can argue you need people to come back to not just talking about we, because we want to actually understand what they did, but what's their tendency? Do they have a community consciousness? Do they think beyond themselves, or is it purely about them? Do they communicate respectfully about other people? So one of the questions that I'll often ask is, tell me about a really challenging relationship with a difficult person. Why did you find them difficult and how did you respond to that? And you can very quickly tell the extent to which people are respectful and also empathetic, because we've all dealt with a difficult person, right? But somebody who is very reasonable will say, well, look, I did find Chris particularly challenging, but they'll also balance that with some empathy for Chris, or if not empathy, at least a respectful mindset. Whereas somebody comes in who's just really harsh in their response to that question and can't see the other person's perspective at all, again, it's a red flag. Whenever you're hiring people, what you're looking for are red and green flags, and do the green flags outweigh the red ones? And with the red ones, are they deal breakers? Are these things that you're seeing that you can safely predict they're going to come into your workplace with those mindsets and with those attitudes? And what's that going to look like when that happens? So I think, to answer your question, is around questioning and then listening for that perspective. But it's also about having a robust recruitment process. If you're just doing a single round of interview, your chances of working out all the things you need to about someone's character is pretty slim. So you can read into CVs. Again, how do people position themselves? Is there humility? Is there respectfulness in the way that they even write the documents? How do they engage with you and other people on the selection panel? Or, I've seen people walk into a business and be really dismissive and rude to the receptionist and then shift their behaviour dramatically for the hiring manager. So, I'd encourage you to take notice of that stuff. It's like if they discriminate on the basis of hierarchy, then again, is there somebody who has a heightened sense of self-importance and doesn't have that respectfulness that we need? And then get multiple people involved in the interview process, multiple rounds of interviews with multiple perspectives. I know, having grown up in a HR manager role, I would meet candidates who would be in a meeting with the hiring manager. I would ask a question. They would literally then look at the manager and answer it. So again, it was really telling, that in their opinion, I was just the HR girl there to answer the questions. There wasn't a respectful level of engagement with me as a member of the panel. Then there's the classics around reference checking, asking the questions, get past just the theoretical parts that they've put on their CV. Talk about how do they go about doing their job. Ask for plenty of examples of how they have reacted or responded in certain circumstances. And then there are psychometric testing you can do, and again, to assess people's level of self-regard and their empathy and other aspects of character traits that again can give you another view of who they are and how they're likely to operate. So it's about being thorough in our process and recognising that we're not just assessing capability, we're assessing character, and clearly narcissism is part of that equation.
If indeed they are working in the business, how do you manage them?
I think it starts by setting really clear behavioural expectations for everybody, and then having a no exceptions rule. So sometimes the mistake businesses make is, here's how we want everyone to behave, But if you're super duper important for whatever reason, so you're the key salesperson or you're a really senior manager, then there's a get out of jail free card, where we actually allow behaviours outside of those expectations. So I think it needs to be one standard for everybody without excuse, as I said. Then it's about engaging in constructive but real conversations about conduct and mindsets. Again, if we genuinely make behaviour matter, then the narcissist is going to stand out pretty quickly. If we're observing them in a team meeting and they're just not listening and they're getting really defensive or they're shutting people down or they're, again, making it all about them, then have the courage to engage in a really honest coaching conversation about that. And then be willing to call it. If the person is genuinely narcissistic, there's only so much we can do to actually coach them to be better. And I think we do use the term too loosely. So I think there are plenty of people who appear to be that way, but because of a lack of confidence and baggage from their past life experiences or whatever it is, they don't turn up being the best version of themselves. So we can take some people down a path to be better and shift the behaviour. But if they're fundamentally, clinical narcissists, that's just the way they're wired, they're not going to be different, and we need to have the courage to call it and exit them from our teams.
That was Karen Gately, CEO of Corporate Dojo. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.